It's after these things. The book contains approximately 10 years of history that fits in that 58-year gap in Ezra between Ezra chapter 6 and chapter 7. The book's easily divided into four parts, and you get four themes in the book. You get the King Ahasuerus' feast of the people, Queen Vashti's feast of women, the feast that honors Mordecai, and then you get the feast of Purim. And there's not a definitive answer as to who the human penman was for this book. He didn't sign it like most of the other books are signed. Historian Flavius Josephus suggested it was Mordecai, to which would seem in Esther chapter 9 that maybe, but again, in my opinion, I don't get hung up on who wrote it. I believe the Holy Spirit wrote it, and it's here, and so I just go with that aspect of the whole thing. Chapter 4, verse number 14, I think is the key verse of the whole book. It says, "For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Probably the most famous and well-quoted verse that comes from Esther, "For such a time as this," which speaks very profound words on every watchman and caring hand of God that works in his providence. It's often unseen but ever present. That's the providence of God. You can't see it, but yet He's working in the background, and it's for such a time as this. Philippians 1:20, "According to my earnest expectation of my hope, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be in life or whether it be in death." So, introduction, verse number 1. "Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus," this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 120 or 107 provinces. That means basically they conquered 127 nations. It's commonly thought that Ahasuerus is the famed Xerxes from history, who was one of the sons of Darius Hittapus. He was a ruler, though he was sure to have inherited much more than much of the 127 provinces. Later, his son Artaxerxes, in Ezra chapter number 4, whereby Vashti, or Esther, none know for sure, succeeds the throne. So that's why you see why the importance of why we jumped all the way over here, is so that you can get the pieces and start to figure out a timeline of what's taking place. In the middle of them building the temple in Jerusalem and rebuilding the walls in Jerusalem, in the middle of all that, you have what takes place here. So there's a lot more that's always going on. Verse 2, "That in those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace." Most likely this is his winter palace. Be much too hot. Be much too hot for him to reside there in the summertime. Kind of like in India. In India, you have certain parts of India that are way too hot in summertime. You're talking about temperature 110, 115, maybe 120 degrees with relative humidity in the 80, 90%. So you're not going to want to go outside. So now he's in Shushan, which is his winter province. That way he's got, obviously, comfort, and he's got a way to protect himself and other things of that nature, enjoy the basic normalcy of life. Now, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes and the provinces being before him. Which isn't uncommon. He's going to make, essentially he's going to have one feast that's going to go basically 187 plus days, right? The first part's going to be for its government. Second part's going to be in the capital city, Shushan, for 7 days. And then there's going to be one for women that come out of this. Verse number 4, "When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. That's a long time to have a government party. Long time to have a feast. Long time to have a celebration. And when these days expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with having a feast in the capital city, 7 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast on all the people that were present in Shushan, verse number 6, with white and green and blue hangings, fastened with cords, and of fine linen, and purple and silver rings, and pillars of marble. And beds were made of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. It's a lot of descriptive information the Lord just provided you. He provides it so that you, as a Bible student, can go and read and search and wonder, why is he giving me all these colors? Well, what's the purpose of all this information? It's so you know what it looks like. Right? I mean, otherwise you just think you're just going to be reading along and not recognize all the care and craftsmanship and splendor of it. And so all the colors are mentioned, and you should actually take time to see what he's teaching you in that description. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, vessels being diverse one from another, meaning they're not all the same, royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. That's very, very important. Just because things are legal doesn't mean they're right. The state of California, for instance, legalized marijuana. They decriminalized it and reported the crime was done. Once they decriminalized it, crime went down. And now they're finding out crime's actually up in different areas because of what they did. 5 years removed, its damaging effects upon the residents are horrifying and only getting worse. Drunkenness is one of the most costly actions upon our society. Here in the U.S., the total cost of alcohol and its related damages upon a nation exceeds some $160 per year in 1991. Put it in comparison. That cost was equal to Hurricane Katrina's damage in 2005. Just to get you an idea of how detrimental drunkenness is to our nation. Drunkenness, as you know, produces nakedness, which produces perversion, which aids in evil spirits and everything else that goes with that. You know it's true. And it says none was compelling. I mean, they weren't forcing you to drink it. For so the king had appointed all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. And also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. So Vashti makes her feast for the women. Verse 10. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman and Bizbah and Harbon and Bigtha and Abagath and Zethar and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. They have some wonderful names. Mehuman means faithful. Bizthan is bound or eunuch. A thought may be a void of vital strength and power that serves the puffed up. They become a weakening character that helps bring about the downfall of will. Harbona, that's a donkey driver. I mean, that's what the name means. I wouldn't name any of my children Harbona, the donkey driver, but he's thought to have been initially in league with Haman. Bigtha is part of speech, garden or gift of fortune. Agba is fortune. Zethar is a star. And I'll give you one guess what Carcass means. Right? I mean, how do you get that name? Again, names are so important. And then you wonder why kids are naming their kids the weird names that they're naming today. Names mean something. They do. Verse 11. To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the royal crown, to show the people and the princes her beauty. For she was fair to look upon. That just means that she was what it says. No need to add to it. Verse 12. But Queen Vashti refused to come to the king's commandment by his chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. The king said in no wise said to the wise men which knew the times, for the king's manner was toward all that knew the law and the judgment. Verse 13 is the key of the chapter. The king said to the wise men. You're going to say, why is it important? Because the king knew who to look to. The king was looking for those that knew the law. The king was looking for those that could help him and be an encouragement to him. While some suppose that this was an idiom of sorts, that the king was looking to how this would impact the culture, I think that's not what he was doing. Others state that these timekeepers knew the law and its interpretation. Thus the king was ensuring that he did all orderly. What a profound verse, which all things point to the fullness of time, Galatians 4:4. All things happen on the Lord's timetable for a reason. See, I think the removal of Vashti gives you a picture of the rapture of the church. Right? And if she is, if you make her a picture of the rapture of the church, then why is she getting raptured out? She's getting raptured out because she's disobedient to the commands of the king. And if the church is raptured out because we're disobedient, then we're in real trouble. And he says over there in Peter, he says, and judgment must first begin where? At the house of God. Now, Vashti is not, she should have went, and she doesn't go. Next to him, verse 14, next to him was Karshna and Shishar and Admathah and Tamish and Meres and Mesna and Mamukan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face and which sat the first in the kingdom. It means they had an elevated spot. They're wise men's names. Karshna, that's a lamb. Shethnar is a star. Admah is a cloud or death. Tarshish is establish or contemplation, any large vessel. Mermes is navigation. Masman is bitterness. Mamukban is dignified. See, there's a lot of wealth information you can get on their names if you just take time to read, because they just don't have any particular name. I mean, God told Joseph and Mary that his name could be Jesus. God told, John the Baptist, his dad, Zacharias, his name's going to be John. So names mean something. The reason why we got a name is because it means something. God knew long before you were born that you were going to be who you were going to be, and he gives you a name. And so the names are important. They're not just names on the paper to make up, they're here. And so that's why they're there. You should take some time to study. And Mamukman answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king of Ahasuerus. So she's obviously done more than just transgress the king. For this deed, the queen shall come abroad to all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. And King Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, we have heard the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal command from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and Medians, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus. And let the king give her royal estate to another that is better than she. Right? So, get the picture in your mind. God gave the oracles of God to the Jews. And the Jews had them. And the Jews are supposed to be a peculiar people. Right? They're supposed to be a peculiar people serving, and then what comes along? They disobey the commands of God. God takes the royal decree from them and gives it to the church. And then now full circle, the church by and large is refusing the commands of the king. We don't follow the precepts. No one really wants to follow the Bible anymore. Churches are on a decline. Guess what's going to happen? The king's going to make a royal decree, and he's going to remove the royal estate from the church and give it to someone else. That's what's going to happen. That's the future. And when the king's decree, which he shall make it published throughout all his empire, for it was great. Don't tell me God don't have a great empire. He's got a great empire. And all the wives shall give their husband honor, both great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Hamukkuk. And he sent letters into the king's province, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and it should be published according to the language of every people. Now you know why I say Lazarus is a picture of God. Right? Word of God is out throughout the world. Right? It's almost in every language. So everybody can understand what he's saying. Mordecai it comes into the picture here in a minute. But he's a picture of the Jew, as I said, perhaps Jesus and the man-child. As you'll see, he will not bow down to him. He absolutely will not bow down to him. He's going to weep bitterly and mourn during a time of trouble. He's miraculously delivered, and he's exalted to be very high status. But the point is, if Vashti is a picture of the church, then we're in grave trouble. I mean, look around. You can look around this church, you can look around nationwide. Church is what? The church, being a woman, type of picture of the bride, is not obeying the command. Not obeying the commands of God. And when we don't obey the commands of God, guess what's going to happen? We're going to get some real trouble. Chapter 2, Esther becomes the queen. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, see, the wrath of the king was appeased. After the rapture of the church, God's going to pour his wrath out on what? On the earth and on the inhabitants. And then after it's appeased, he's going to come back. He remembered Vashti and what she had done and what decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. This is all after the Jews have already left Babylon, right? They're no longer in captivity. The Jews that are here in Shushan and everywhere else, they decided to stay. They liked it. Find virgins. Let the king appoint officers. So they can appoint some officers. The house of the women under the custody of Haggai, the king's chamberlain, keeper of women, and let their things be for purification to be given them. And let their maidens, which please the king, be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. And then we see some names that come out. Some certain Jew named Mordecai, right? The son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Anybody have any idea who he's related to? Kish? Wasn't that Saul's dad? Tribe of Benjamin? You don't think God had a plan all along for the tribe of Benjamin? But Saul made a mess of it. And yet, even though he made a mess of it, here's part of that line. Getting ready to do something great for God. And God's providence. Even though a long time ago, Saul messed it up, God still is going to use that tribe, use that line for his glory. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And had brought up Hadash, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter. They're cousins. You probably already knew that. They're cousins. He's not her uncle. They're cousins. My wife's got a wide, diverse family as far as age. She's got cousins that are almost her same age. So don't be alarmed because suddenly now you're aware now Mordecai is Esther's cousin. For she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took her for his own daughter. So obviously there's an age gap. But you understand that. Nothing new there. Ought not to be nothing new. So things you can get out of here, you have to be careful. In verse number 2, you can make an argument that he's talking about Matthew chapter 25, and that the parable of the 10 virgins is connected to verse number 2 when he's going to find the virgins. You got to be careful. Just so you know, verse number 3, when they start to seek, maybe that's when they're drawing the Jews from the four corners. Haggai, or Hedge, the king's chamberlain. Hedge is the feminine word for girl or maiden, hence the title of the head chamberlain for the house of the women. Sometimes when you run across these names, they're not someone's name, they're someone's title. Right? And we don't have the Persian culture. We don't have that. And so that might not be his name, that might be his title. Kind of like when you're out on the job floor or out working. Sometimes they just call you the straw boss. That's not your name. Right? They call you, hey boss. Well, that's not your name, but you answer to it, so don't be alarmed at certain names. Verse number 5, that's the second occurrence for the word Jew. First occurrence was 2 Kings 16:6. So it's a derogatory name, just so you know. It's meant as an insult. That's how it comes about. Mordecai it's uncertain. Daniel and Ezekiel went to Babylon, 2 Kings chapter 24, the royal family. Nehemiah and Mordecai went to Shushan. Note that Mordecai, we talked about Mordecai being a Benjamite, but the lesson, rest assured, that God's task will always be complete. Always be complete. Verse number 8. And so it came to pass, when the king's command and his decree was heard, when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also into the king's house to the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness. And he speedily gave her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were to meet her, given to her, out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place to the house of the women. We've read, what is that, 19 verses. We have 20, 29 verses, 30 verses, 31 verses. We haven't run across God yet. Do you see God there? Here's a Jewish maiden going in to be one of those that's going to be chosen from, and somehow, she gets elevated to the top. She winds up being the cream of the crop. How does that happen unless God isn't have his hand upon her? He's got his hand upon her. He's got the eunuch, right? You got to be a eunuch to be in charge of all the maids, right? They're not going to have any kind of impropriety take place. They just go ahead and make you a eunuch. So if you don't want to be this kind of chamberlain, don't sign up for it, because you're going to have to be. And yet through that, God is working through him to elevate Esther to a place of prominence amongst all the rest. Very, very interesting. And Esther had not showed her people, nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. Right? She didn't tell anybody she's a Jew. Hence why she's going by the name Esther. She's not going by the name Hadash. That's her Jewish name. That's a myrtle tree. Esther is the Persian translation of Hadash. So she's keeping her background from everybody. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house, to know how Esther did and what should become of her. He's got his eye on her. Right? He's got his eye upon her. He don't have an elevated position, but he's got his eye upon her, making sure that she's okay. Now, when every maiden's turn was come to go in to the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months according to the manner of the women. So you just fast forward 12 months or more, right? 12 months of purification. We're going to read it. She's going to spend some time at one house, and then she's going to spend another 6 months at another house, making sure that she has plenty of oil and oil of mirth, and 6 months with sweet odors and other things for purifying of the woman. Obviously, the king wants, his future queen to smell nice. And I don't know if you're into emojis. But there's an emoji at the end of verse number 12. Right? For the purifying of the women. And then there's a colon, and then there's a parentheses, which makes the winking and smiling face. Right? God's into all that. So there's nothing new. Right? He's texting a smiley face there so you can take a look at it and see, because here the king is making sure that his future bride is going to be purified. Thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given to her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. And in the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of women, to the custody of Shahagaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came into the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Again, very, very important. Esther is going to display some very godly characteristics. Verse 15 is the key verse for this chapter. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abiel, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was to come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. To me, that's 1 Timothy 6:6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. She could have asked for all kinds of things. As is supposed by all the rest of the women, they could get whatever they wanted. She didn't ask for anything. That's a characteristic that few of us don't have. She teaches us a lesson that we should observe. Even when the opportunity was available, Esther never took advantage of the situation. Kind of like what Bob Jones Sr. used to say. Though all the stars in heaven were to fall, do right. No matter if everything else falls apart, do right. Right? And you look at how corrupt things are. You don't have to. Some people, if you're working and you get the charge of money, you got an expense account, and you have a certain daily limit. You don't have to charge $125 every day if you don't spend it. Right? I mean, you don't have to take something that's not yours. Right? And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all of them that looked upon her. She obtained favor because she didn't ask for anything. Right? So here's the second time you can see God working. Favor. The only way you're going to find favor is from God. The only way you're going to get favor from others when God's got his hand upon you. So Esther was taken unto the king, Ahasuerus, into the house royal in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. So now we're 4 years from chapter number 1. It's a long time, right? So it took a while to put the queen apart. It took a while to get all the maids together and search for them. Verse 17, and the king loved Esther above all women, and she obtained grace. And the critic can't see God in the book. Here's grace. Right? Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace are you saved. The whole book's about grace. The Bible's all about grace. Just because you don't find his name, just because it's written in a certain manner, that doesn't mean that God's not in there. Found grace. Just like Ruth did. Ruth found grace and favor in his sight. More than all the virgins. So that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. She behaved herself like a queen. She behaved herself like a royal queen. She didn't take things that weren't hers. She didn't ask for things, though she could have got them. She didn't flaunt her opportunity. And yet we have a society, a culture, that says if it's available, just take it. Just take it. We don't need to take it. I don't know, maybe you've been shopping in the stores. I've been shopping in the stores, and they give out free samples. And I look at it, and if I don't want it, I don't take it, even though it's free. I could have. I'm like, I don't want that. Right? It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't need a sample of Cheerios. I really don't. I don't care what kind of milk you put on there. No, I mean, I don't. I've seen them giving samples of different kind of things. I'm like, I don't need that. Right? Last time I seen them giving samples of pizza, I had one. I had to go buy a pizza. I'm like, you're not going to let me stand here. I'm going to have to just go buy a pizza. Right? But I'm not going to sit there and take advantage of it. And you ought not to either. And Esther doesn't do that. And because she doesn't do that, the king is watching. And so you imagine all the rest of the maids that come in and everything. Why is he going to pick Esther over everyone else? Because she finds favor in his eyes. Maybe he could see something inside. You know. Abby was asking all kinds of interesting questions this afternoon. And basically, I'm like, Abby, look, we just want you to be happy. Right? So you just need to be happy. Not worry about other things. Right? We have favor because it's you. And so whatever conversation Esther has with the king, we're not told. But I'm going to tell you, it's because she didn't take anything. It's because she didn't ask anything. It's because she had a good report that came from the chamberlain. It's because God was watching over her and providing for her. She's given a crown. Given a crown. Verse 18, and the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. Stately gifts. Stately gifts, I'm telling you, is better than any wedding, birthday, Christmas, or anniversary gift most of us have ever received. Right? Some people still have all the wedding gifts they got, and praise the Lord, I'm glad you got it. And you got that bowl, and you got that. She was given stately gifts, far better. Not only were that, but they were freely given, and they were unbraided. It means they didn't have any strings attached to them. These people freely gave to this wedding. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Now, maybe just make a mental note of that. He's sitting in the king's gate. We haven't got to Nehemiah yet. We haven't got to look at all the gates that surround Jerusalem. But there's a message and a meaning for you and me when the Lord's mentioning gates. Right? There's 10 gates that surround Jerusalem. Now, we're in Shushan. I don't know how many gates are. He doesn't tell us. But I'm telling you what. He's telling you Mordecai is sitting in the king's gate. That's very important. That's a gate of prominence. That's a gate of respect. That's a gate of authority. Mordecai is sitting there. Very, very important. So, again, when you're reading the Bible and you run across things like that, he's telling you something. He's telling you something that you should pay attention. Sat in the king's gate, and Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as she was brought up with him. She didn't change. She didn't change. You know how many times people change? Right? Maybe you don't see it in church like you see it in the workplace. But you give somebody a promotion and then watch them change. And they were your best friend yesterday, and they come in today and they're completely different. I've seen it. They come in and they're trying to do all these things. And you're like, that's not who you are. And Esther doesn't change. She didn't change. She's just following what Mordecai said. Keep in mind, Vashti didn't respond to the king and wouldn't follow the king's command. Esther is following Mordecai's command, her cousin, her elder relative, one that's been caring for her, one that's been teaching her, one that's been instructing her. But she doesn't change. She's the same. She goes from just being a common woman to being now in the king's palace, being queen with a crown, and she's the same. She didn't change. If change comes along, and most of the time it's for the bad. And in those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out therefore, they were both hanged on a tree. As it's written in the book of Chronicles before the king. There's a lot going on here. Teresh means crack off or bust out. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to learn in heaven that Haman's involved here. His hostility towards Mordecai might have been fueled by this exposed failed coup of killing the king. Hanged. Those that were hanged in the Bible. Genesis chapter number 41, the chief baker was hanged in Egypt. The king of Ai, Joshua chapter 8, was hanged. Joshua 10, 5 kings were hanged. Rechab and Benah were hanged in 2 Samuel chapter 4. Ahithophel hanged himself. 2 Samuel 17. Absalom was hung in a tree. The 7 sons of Saul, 2 Samuel chapter 21. Judas was hanged. You see the picture? You see how already prophetic this is? As we're reading along, and now there's intrigue, and there's all kinds of things going on. Why do you think kings had cupbearers? Put a little poison in it. Someone wants the throne. Everybody wants something. Everybody's trying to assume something. And the key here is Esther doesn't change. Esther is still tracking right. She doesn't change. Well, what a great picture. What a great way that we can look at it. I think the book of Esther shows you the way of glorification. Right? She's going to be glorified. She's going to be redeemed. She's going to set her people free. She's going to protect her people. Right? It's all one person. All one person. So in chapter 4, verse number 14, when it said, "For such a time as this," I think we all have such a time as this. I think we've all had multiple such times as this. He lets you meet people at the right time. He orchestrates it out at such a time so that you're in the right spot. That's how promotions come. That's how people get the big jobs. That's how sometimes you meet your wife or your husband. Right? For such a time as this. Right? I mean, it's not all just accident. It's not all just happenstance. It wasn't just happenstance that Queen Vashti refused the king. Right? If she's a picture of the church, then we have a lot of things that we need to do. Because as a body of believers, we're not following the commands of the king. I mean, you go back and read what he's commanded us all to do. He's commanded us to study. He's commanded us to give. He's commanded us to love. He's commanded us to forgive. He's commanded us to go and tell. He's commanded us to do all kinds of things. And then look at what we're not doing. At what point you think the king's just going to be fed up with it? Right? We look at the rapture like, oh, we just can't wait. When's he going to come? The sound of the trumpet. Yeah, we're all listening for it. We're all looking for it. But I'm telling you, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, the judgment seat, I'm just telling you, and it's not going to be that we're going right to judgment. That's why you can say Vashti's a picture of God taking her out. Done. Not doing what we're supposed to do. Church was designed to what? Be a mobile mass unit to heal people, help people, and equip them to go out and tell others so that you can spread the gospel. And we're not doing that. Christianity's not doing that. If we were doing that, our world wouldn't be as wicked as it is. People wouldn't be dying going to hell. You wouldn't have drug problems like you have. And we got big drug problems. I mean, if Minnesota's going to legalize marijuana here in 2 years, and Wisconsin's going to legalize it, I'm just telling you, just because we legalize it doesn't make it any better. Not going to make our society better. Not going to make our kids better. I mean, just do some thinking. I mean, high school kids used to try to get alcohol. Now, boy, there's no limit. Right? Now there's no limit. We can't compel people to do those things. We need to take a position and do what God wants us to do. Lest he's going to find someone else. Done. See ya. Next. That's what he does. That's what he's done for I don't know, 500 pages in my Bible. Right? He picks them, he chooses them. Saul, King Saul. Took him. Done. Disobedience. Vashti. Done. Disobedience. Now, she most likely probably gets shut up in a house somewhere and we're never heard of. She's never heard of again. But to go from having that stately position of being queen to being forever shut up and someone else is going to come and take your spot. We got to be careful. We have to be careful. As a church, as believers, as saints of God, as children of God, we have to be very, very careful that we don't find ourselves in a position like Vashti. Vashti couldn't find favor in the king. She had to have, at one point, she married him. Right? I mean, at some point, he had to have been pleased with her. And then, a short time later, 7 years later, find someone else. But keep in mind, that's not the picture of the story. The story is God providentially working and putting people in place as something else is coming from the other direction. And just as much as God is working and orchestrating all the details for the fullness of time, the adversary is plotting and ploying, trying to kill Ahasuerus. Why do you suppose someone's trying to kill Ahasuerus? If Ahasuerus is gone, guess who else is going to go bye-bye too? Bye, Esther. And when Esther goes bye-bye, then what happens? Right? You didn't think that was in there. It is. It's all in there for us. It's all in there so that we can learn. We can learn what God wants us to do. Haman is going to be hanged as well. And his 10 sons. Right? Which is why I told you Haman's a picture of the Antichrist. Go over and read Revelation. You'll read that the Antichrist has 10 sons. Interesting how the parallels. Again, people are like, man, we want to study prophecy. Read the Bible. This thing's loaded. And I look at our current political environment worldwide, and I'm like, man, I see all kinds of parallels. What's happening in Ezra, Nehemiah, and if that's true, Esther can't be too far right. We're supposed to look nigh, amen? Amen. Make sure that we behave ourselves in a way that we don't change, and that we can obtain favor in the sight of all them that look upon us. Amen. That's how the church should. Let's pray. Father, we're thankful. Lord, we pray.